So welcome everybody. Welcome to the Q&A for our NYWIFT member screening series. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Katie Chambers. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at New York Women in Film and Television. For those of you who don't know who we are, New York Women in Film and Television, or NYWIFT for short, is a nonprofit professional association for women in film, television, and digital media. We have more than 2,500 members in the New York City area, and we're part of a network of 50 women in film chapters worldwide with more than 15,000 members. We in the New York City chapter do work in 4 areas. We produce more than 50 innovative programs and special events annually, which provide professional development opportunities for our members. And of course, we are doing all of those right now virtually rather than in person. We advocate for equality for women in the entertainment industry. We preserve and fund films by women, and we celebrate women's achievements. NYWIFT is all about women calling the shots. It's one of the best networking organizations in the city, not that we're biased, and we welcome the participation of both women and men. Right now, we are running our community building membership campaign. So if you're not a member yet, this is the perfect time to join. We hope you'll go to nywift.org/join and apply. And we are waiving the initiation fee in its entirety through July 15th as part of this campaign. So it's a really big discount. So on to today's program. The NYWIFT member screening series showcases the work of our talented membership and provides our members with the opportunity to share their work with the broader New York City community in a theatrical setting. Of course, during the COVID-19 crisis, we shifted this program to an online theatrical setting. So hopefully you all had the chance to watch the virtual screening over the weekend. If you didn't, by the way, that link that we gave you will expire by the end of the day today. So you can always go back and watch the film or watch it again tonight when we're done talking here. Today's Q&A session, as I mentioned before, will be recorded, and we post all these videos publicly on our NYWIFT Programming Goes Digital Hub, which you can find on our homepage. So do check it out, as we have a lot of other virtual programs on there as well. And we hope you'll participate today. So I'm going to be asking questions, but you can also put your questions in the Q&A feature, which is at the bottom center of your screen. So you can do that at any time, and I'll be seeing them and I can give them to our panelists. So if you learned something new today, we also hope that you'll post about it on social media using #NYWIFT. And on to our panelists. So today, I have the great pleasure of talking to filmmaker and NYWIFT member Michele Remsen about Toss It. Michele is the producer, director, writer, and star of the film. She was awarded the 2018 NYWIFT Nancy Malone Marketing and Promotion Grant for her first film, Toss It, which is available on Amazon Prime and Apple TV worldwide via Journeyman Pictures. She was also a 2019 finalist for the NYWIFT Ravenel Foundation Feature Film Grant for her screenplay Raccoon. She is a filmmaker, director, screenwriter, producer, TV writer, actor, playwright, and novelist, and she is a member of the Writers Guild of America East and Film Fatales in addition to NYWIFT. Whew. Welcome, Michele.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you.
And
a lot of hyphens there.
It's a lot of hyphens. You are a true multi-hyphenate, which I do want to ask you about in just a little bit. And I do also want to note we have some other panelists joining us today. We have Blair Ross, who played Adele, Allison Frasca, who played Natalie, Jenny Zerke, who played Marie, and Annie Jeeves, who is the publicist for the film. So exciting cast and publicist, as well as our multi-hyphenate star, producer, director, writer. So I'm going to kick the first question over to you, Michele. Talk to us about how the film came about.
Well, it started sort of by accident. It was a little one-act play that I was going to do years ago in LA for a show we used to do in my theater company called My Bitter Valentine, about love gone wrong. And it was sort of an annual event because we always had more material. And then I brought it in and read it at New York at Naked Angels. And then people kept wanting to know what happened next. And it sort of evolved into a play. And then when I wanted to shoot, I have larger film projects that I was thinking I was going to be making first, but then I needed to basically prove, I could do a feature. I'd done multiple shorts and some were award winning, which is nice, but a feature is a different animal. And so I adapted this play into a screenplay. And then I did a reading through Access Theater where I did some of the development as well. And I had these lovely ladies in the cast and they all crushed it. So I cast them like on the spot. And that was how that's how it began.
How long did you end up working on it then, from first idea to end of?
Well, I guess when it became, you mean as when I was developing it as,
Yeah, I'm just curious how long the story was something that you were working on playing around with, you know, sometimes
Yeah.
people think that it's just the shooting period, and obviously there's a lot more to develop
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah. A few years prior to that, because it was, like I said, I had done first I'd done some readings I did at EST as a play. And then I was doing a reading that I wanted to specifically see if it would work as a screenplay. So
Okay.
a few years. And then, it was also like the financing. I thought I had financing a different way, and that took another year. And so 4 or 5 years probably. Yeah.
Question, not just for you, but for all of the cast, about the theme of anti-romantic comedy, which always is what strikes me whenever I'm reading about the film, or even when I'm watching the film. You know, all the rom-com tropes are definitely there. The chance meetings, the meddling family members, the will they or won't they. But you bill it as an anti-romantic comedy. Can you talk a little bit about your choices there, and also how that affected all the cast members as characters?
Somebody want to jump in there?
I know for Natalie and Bobby's relationship, there's a lot of picture perfect kind of beginnings to it, where, yeah, it's kind of picking up where movies usually end, where it's like, oh, the wedding, everybody's together and excited, and they go off to their future together. But then what's so great about this film is seeing kind of the practical day-to-day, what happens after you're married, after, you know, the dress is put away and you start building a life together, and how that looks so different from the lead up to it. And then everybody focuses on the lead up, because I guess that's the, you know, exciting how'd you meet story. But yeah, then focusing on that and having Natalie and Bobby kind of represent maybe a lot of anti-romance, in the sense of more having to focus on practical things right from the beginning of the movie, where they're having a baby, they're planning a funeral. It's a lot of life events that hit couples, that test couples. And I think that's a really great aspect from my point of view of working at it from that angle, which is, you know, like a young married couple setting out.
Yeah. I think also, like, so much of Hollywood, like, you grow up watching movies that all come out of Hollywood and this like studio system, and you really kind of are sold a lie. Like life is so not like that, but you grow up like thinking that it is, or that it should be, and then your life doesn't look like that, and you're like, oh, I feel like my life should look like that because I keep being told that that's what it's supposed to be. And I think what's so cool about this movie is it really like splits that apart, and it kind of like unflinchingly is like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to look at reality. And I think that's one of my favorite things about it, is like getting underneath this like myth we've all been told to buy into. And I love that about this movie.
Yeah.
Blair, your character ends up giving a lot of advice to the younger couples. Can you talk a little bit about how that plays into the anti-romantic themes of the?
Well, the nice things being, you know, the older couple, that, you know, Adele had done everything right, you know, married the right person, lockstep, everything like that. And it's still just a minefield of small disappointments, you know. and she kind of, you know, lets younger people know, look, be prepared for this. It's not going, some things may never resolve, and you stick to it day by day, and it's not bliss. And, you know, no matter how fantastic the couple or perfect the partner, that's kind of true. It's not bliss every day. And she's very frank about that. You know, it's not, you know, you work out compromises within these unions, and it's, and you just have to either leave, you know, live with those compromises or leave, you know, and Adele chose to live with the compromises, and that's, you know, what she passes on. You know, there are good things to doing that. You know, there is some satisfaction in that and some reward, but you know, it's you know, it's complicated, and every relationship is different. But from her perspective of, when she got married and probably what she expected out of this marriage. It wasn't, on the outside, I'm sure it was everything people expect, but, in reality it wasn't. And she seems, copacetic with that. She's.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, I'm actually going to jump in with one of the questions from our Q&A box because it ties into what we're talking about. Leslie is asking, she said she enjoyed the film very much, and she's wondering why you chose to call it an anti-romantic comedy, because the main couple does end up happily ever after.
Well, it took a long time for them to get there. And I think what I wanted to do is sort of deconstruct, as we all talked about, it sort of starts at the happy ending where all these romances, where it looks like it's going to be, clear sailing, and then life hits and everybody's struggling and negotiating and reassessing about their choices and how the path looks. And I think for the central couple, I think it's really, for Emily and Finn, it's kind of almost to the last frame of it, whether they're really going to decide to make a go on it, because they have so many doubts and they've seen so many of these other relationships around them, not, pay off the way they think. And they're both so smart, they can kind of see all the options, and that makes it even harder for them to commit because, they know, in a way. And so I think that's why in the end, it was tricky, if they don't make a choice to go forward, then I feel like as a story, it wasn't very satisfying, because then they're like, nah, we're just going to walk away from all this. And I think it's a very brave thing that they, in the end, decide to give it a go, because they know and they've seen and they've been advised by everybody around them, and they're still going to go forward. So I think in that way, it keeps the anti-romantic theme of that, in spite of reality, we're gonna go forward and give it a shot.
One thing that we talked about, Michelle, was that each of these characters sort of deal with how society expects women to fit into certain types and certain roles, often at the expense of what they truly want. And I was curious how each of you, starting with Michelle, but each of you approached that as an actor, sort of dealing with playing an archetype while also dismantling it throughout the course of the film.
Yeah, that was things I keep saying. It's like I used to be, as we all said, we've all been like seen all these either from childhood, like the romance fairy tales, and then all the beautiful like rom-com movies, and even the screwball comedies are all delightful like Champagne. But I really wanted to take, like in my Emily's characters, the wary, savvy woman, and I was like, well, what made her that way? And so I started kind of thinking, all right, well, who in her life would have put her in that path? And so that's why I felt like I sort of took the prototype and then wanted to did a little deeper research, lifted under the hood and be like, well, what would have made her so distrustful of people? And so when I built the backstory, then I felt like it took her, the prototype to a new place, I hoped.
Mm-hmm. Did anybody else want to add about your characters? Allison, Jenny, Blair?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I love what you said about how women are really try to be shoved into these boxes, and then they kind of navigate their lives within them. And it's interesting because Marie is kind of one of the only characters in the movie that's kind of actively trying to break out of that, which was a really, really cool to sort of develop a character from that perspective. She's really trying to live authentically. And I think what's so interesting is she keeps coming up against all these people who refuse to, and so kind of like this sort of lone person forging her path, and she almost her own happiness is sort of thwarted in a sense by people who refuse to step out of those little boxes. So that was an interesting thing as an actor to play with and come up against, and and I'm sure that and I think I've felt this as a woman. I'm sure other people do too. In life, you feel that you're trying to do your thing, and then you're but wait, but there are these walls, and they shouldn't be there. And yeah, so that was a really fun aspect of my character for sure.
And I think a super interesting aspect of Natalie is that she wants the things. She wants the checkbox, married, children, live in the suburbs, husband works, I'm a homemaker. She wants those boxes checked off, and breaking her down as somebody who's trying to emulate Adele's character of cramming herself into the box she wants, but she's a different shape from that box. But watching her navigate how she gets those things and how she makes those things happen for herself is where the unconventional aspect lies for me, where she is very passionate and very, driven, and seeing that manifest in the white picket fence mold, I also thought was funny. Like, that was what was funny about it to me, that she's this feisty, really intense person who's like, and my life's perfect. Thanks, everybody. That to me is what was so fun about it.
Question for you, Michelle. We were talking before about you being a multi-hyphenate. So director, producer, writer, and star of this film. What are some of your strategies for juggling so many roles on one project?
A lot of preparation. Well, the story, like I said, had been written. I'd sort of test drove it in a couple of different readings, so I felt very confident in, especially when I was doing readings in front of audiences, which especially when you're doing comedy, you're like, okay, I got to laugh there. Let's hope we get the same one in the film, and try to how to cut it so it would play the same way. And so I felt good about that. And I'm also doing the readings because then I had these great actors do it, and they got wonderful laughs. So I felt like my casting was locked down, and I felt super confident, and they all came, ready to roll. Producing, yeah, I mean, I sort of took that on mostly because funding was really limited. It was really hard to get someone to do that for no money, and also I think it was a bigger job because I had done it for my shorts, and when I think I naively was like, oh, it can't be that hard, and I'd done so much prep and all these things, but it was a lot more than I expected. I had a great AD, Diane McGuire, who came as part of the deal with George Barnes, who is unfortunately not being our DP, who brought the great crew, which is also how I was able to produce well, because George had his little team of these pro guys who would work together, and they were just like hand in glove. Our AC, Ryan D, it was just an arm car, the Gauch and the lighter. It was just, they just sort of were little L's, and they got everything, done. And I also walked through all the locations with George, the DP, in advance of the shoot. So he knew coming in, what it was going to look like, what the parameters were. I talked, and I went through all the shots, how I wanted everything to look. And then with Diane's help, put together a schedule where we could do a lot of pages a day. It was like 8 or 10 pages a day, because we did this in 12 days, which is insane, I know, but we just had to, because that was the availability of George with his beautiful Alexa gear and these wonderful guys. And so that was it. And oddly,
how do you do that in 12 days? I mean, that's a very tight schedule. How do you organize that? I'm stuttering because I'm stuttering in my head. I'm trying to picture doing all that in 12 days.
Well, we sort of clumped things together, like everything that was a lot of the scenes that were supposedly in Philadelphia were actually, everything was in New York, just, full disclosure. And so we clumped some things on the Upper West Side together, and then my apartment here became, the green room. And then we did a big day. All the LA and Vegas was all in one mid-century modern hotel on West 42nd Street. And thank God we got a beautiful sunny day, because it really looked like LA, all those open courtyards. And we even did the assisted living facility too, because that got jammed in a hallway. It was sort of on the fly at the end of the day. It was just, that kind of pulled that one out of the rabbit's hat. And then fortunately we had my cousin's lovely home for the family home, which, I had been prepping all those shots for a long time, because I go there a lot. And so I kind of knew, how I wanted it to look. And also because the way that the home has a very open floor plan, it made it actually really easy for the gear to be there, and, in an open space without having to we couldn't move a wall because there weren't many walls. So, but it actually made it much easier to shoot. And the same with the hotel sequence. I rented 2 suites, and then we basically, one was where all the prep and the camera and everything, and then we walked across and we turned 2 suites into 3 different rooms, and then we moved everything into the last one, and we shot the bridal suite for the last one. And so yeah, so the acting for me was sort of the last thing, because at that point it was just all right, let's just go, because I can just step into frame and say it. Because I mean, I'd written it originally, someone wanted to work with me, which is the whole reason that I wrote that part, because someone wanted to do one of those little one acts with me. So, and then, So by the time I got to do it, I knew Emily very well. So I didn't have to waste a lot of time directing me to get that helped too. And a great cast who were like letter perfect. So we just rocked through it.
2 questions from the chat window. Kay is asking, you mentioned that you had a year and a half where you were looking for financing. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you did ultimately find financing in the end, especially being a first-time feature director?
Yeah, it came down to debt and donations. And so I fortunately had, or at least used to have a good credit rating. And so I had like, I had stuff on credit cards, but I also became a sponsored project, fiscally sponsored project through Fractured Atlas, which is one of those not-for-profit organizations where people could make donations through it. And then because they had their 501c3, then whoever made a donation could then get a tax deduction. And that opened the door for me to larger donors, because at a certain level, people who can take a tax deduction, need to write off money anyway. And so they were sort of happy to do it. And I was fortunate that I met some people who could, and then they recommended it to their friends, and it sort of became this lovely, word of mouth thing. But the 501c3 was a big, I think it was a game changer, because other platforms like, nothing against Indiegogo or Kickstarter, it's just like, that's just a gift, where this people get at least a tax break, as well as, participating in the film. So that helped me.
And Leslie is asking, are you willing to say what the budget for the film was, or if not, would you be able to tell them what kind of SAG-AFTRA contracts you were using to give them a hint?
Right, a SAG ULB. I'll be really blunt. I did it for $150,000, which, it was just, it was a lot of deals and negotiations. Some of the locations were free. Like I said, George was like an all-in package with his crew, and. But I paid everybody, all the actors got paid, even the ones who were not SAG, I paid everybody $125 a day. So it was equal opportunity employer in that sense, because I just wanted everyone to be paid who worked on it. Yeah.
Good. And for casting, I know you worked with a consultant, but you did, obviously, these ladies were all part of the reading, which I didn't realize. So they came on board early. I know you mentioned to me that you lost your actor playing Finn 2 weeks before shooting, because you had great chemistry with the actor who ultimately plays him. I'm surprised it wasn't someone you were working with all along.
I know. I've had other people ask us that too. One of my first interviews through Annie, the publicist that I got to hire with the NYWIFT grant, he was convinced that he's like, but no, you're old friends, right? Like he actually edited it out of the interview later, I think, because he was so convinced that we had known each other. No, it was just I'd reached out to a casting director that now in LA, Sarah Finn, who recommended me to Allison Frasca, who works here in New York. It was like, I needed somebody here because I couldn't fly anybody in. I needed somebody local because it's also how I saved money, because everyone, slept and ate at home for dinner. I was basically bought people breakfast and lunch. And most days we were wrapped, by, we had 12-hour days. So, people were home for dinner. So that also was a big cost saving. But anyway, Allison, I basically told her, here's the script and here's the character. And she gave me some choices. And then Phil and I did a Skype session where we kind of talked about it and kind of vibed out our chemistry, and then he was actually very eager to do the script, which was really in the project, so that really helped. And then we met for drinks like once about 3 days before to help. We went through his wardrobe and picked some outfits, and then Monday he was there, and so that was kind of it. Yeah.
I think a huge credit to Michele is that she is, you mentioned a multi-hyphenate, but also a problem solver. Like, she literally took on all aspects of this and sold her film. We did marketing art, which, she art directed. Like, that's rare, but I think it also speaks for women in film and television. You have to be a problem solver and a multi-hyphenate, because where your male counterpart is kind of given that leeway or that support system, you are your own support system or supporting each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk to me about the marketing artwork, because I know you shot the poster together. Annie, you shot the poster, right? Is what you told me?
Yes. So so as a publicist, I'm kind of a twofer Jill, because I also am a camera geek. And Michele and I were talking about, it's like you have to kind of pay attention to what's happening in the world. And really, the feeling was that, there was so much focus for these incredible women, and they're so diverse. So it was playing on themes, it was utilizing, you know, kind of smart imagery and coming up with the concept that we wanted. So that was, again, all Michelle's. We discussed everything we wanted. She found, you know, the studio. I brought in the camera assistant and myself and my camera, and we got the lights rented, we got everything, we got everyone's dresses, and we shot everything in a matter of hours in an afternoon in New York, and had beautiful art really fast thereafter.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of play with that whole image of, you know, the poster art, which, you know, is the women sort of on a divan and they're all in their gowns, and it's just sort of like having fun with the whole like Jane Austen-ness of it all, you know, and like the romance. And that's why, you know, it's the anti-romantic comedy, you know, with the coin toss sort of falling in, because it's very like everything is sort of tossed, be it a coin, a bouquet, a dice. And so I wanted to sort of have poke a little fun at, you know, all our expectations. And so that's how that sort of came about. And especially I really wanted to lean into like, you know, the women of, because it's yes, it's will they or won't they, but I think it's also like, as I talk about, all the women really kind of negotiate all the mess that a lot of the men often create in the movie. And because that's what we do. As Annie was saying, we're problem solvers and nurturers. And that's, I think, what we see in all these various different relationships. They're all in their own way trying to nurture and take care of things, you know, even if it's a flawed approach. But it also then kind of, you know, ultimately begs the bigger question. It's like, if women are, you know, shaping the world because we shape people, why is it so messed up? But that's a bigger question.
I don't think we can answer that in one movie. I wish we could.
The sequel, we'll get to it, maybe, we'll see.
Yeah, well, someone did ask if there is going to be a sequel. That is one of the questions coming up.
Oh my gosh, that's that would be fun. I would love to work with this gang again, like in a heartbeat. I just don't know, you know, it's just like everything is up in the air right now with, you know, every production. You know, I sort of had, you know, like you mentioned the Robin, right? You know, yeah, I was thinking I was going to be shooting Raccoon, this sort of darkly comic crime thriller is my next one, and I just was kind of waiting to see, like, you know, was there a demand for a Toss It sequel, Toss It 2? You know, I mean, I have some ideas about, you know, where all the characters might be, and like a year after the events of this one, and it could be fun. I would love to. I just you know, we just sort of have to see, you know, where we are as far as like shooting and funding. And I guess I have to see if these other, because I had a comedy series that I was also shopping, and so I just didn't really know which was going to be next. And so I'm glad you want to see a sequel. Yeah, definitely have ideas.
Anonymous attendee wants to see a sequel, but there's somebody out there. A question, just going back to marketing and promotion. So you applied for and you got the NYWIFT Nancy Malone Marketing and Promotion Grant, which goes straight towards, obviously, marketing and promotion. Can you talk about how you use that, about hiring Annie, who's here and fabulous, working with Annie, and what some of your strategies were, and some of the events that you did to promote the film?
Sure, happy to. Yeah, the first thing we did was, I guess it was about a year prior to that, we did one festival out in LA, which didn't really move the needle that much, but I did and we got some cool imagery from, you know, Getty Images, and we got some nice press in Movie Maker magazine, and Annie set up some nice interviews with Debbie Lynn Elias Behind the Lens, which I just did my third interview with her, because she's such a fan of the movie, which is lovely. She's a huge indie film supporter. And so we've done some really interesting, like, sort of in-depth filmmaker interviews. And then I got a international sales agent who took the film first to the AMF in Berlin, and then we went to Cannes. And then Annie, coincidentally, was also going to be the head of PR for the American Pavilion at Cannes. And so we were talking about it, and she was like, you know, why don't you do a screening and a press party here at the Pavilion and then build some buzz? And so basically we did that. And the short of it is, we got a worldwide distribution deal, you know, through Journeyman Pictures. Somebody kind of gave them the heads up, and so then they became aware of the Cannes, you know, events. And so about 2 days after I landed, I got the deal. So it really paid off. Well, and Annie's just been, beside, you know, a great publicist, also has become a really great friend. We had a few days in Paris. I think we just sort of started to put some of the ideas in my head about the artwork when we did that sort of fun photo shoot in your hotel, because she had a mess up with the hotel, and then they put her in this fabulous like Louis Couture suite in this hotel, and we sort of had fun, and I had like an extra, you know, gown as you do when you're in Cannes, and we sort of did this fun photo shoot, you know, about the whole like romance of it. And I think that stuck in my head. It was like, oh, we think that might play into the marketing for the whole film of, you know, this is what we're sold, you know. And then if, you know, and then we do some like modern dress counterparts to it, you know, of like the real, you know, the fantasy versus the reality.
Which was a lot of fun. And she was a hot ticket in Cannes. We had a sold out party looking over the Crozet over the Riviera, as one does.
So cool.
And then, yeah, when we shot in Paris, it's like, it's, you know, around Memorial Day weekend. It was a rainy day outside, and we shot Michelle in this beautiful dress with these chandeliers. And that's when we started going, wait a minute. And that was the end of May. And we shot that poster art in July.
Right, which is good, because then the film was ready, you know, that was then the key art for Journeyman, you know, and all the websites, you know, around, so, which was launching in September. And so, yeah.
And it's out on video on demand now, right? So are you employing any extra marketing strategies now that everybody is at home and more into on demand than ever?
I hope so. Yeah, this is the thing, you know, I'm really grateful for this, because I think it's a great way to sort of like launch the idea of like, hey, it's a virtual series. And, you know, it was interesting because when it, you know, I think everybody took a few weeks or a month, or I mean, what is it now, 7-8 weeks in, where we're just sort of really going, okay, this is, I guess, the new normal now. And so, yeah, I've been doing some social media, but I think I'm going to start doing more of it now, because it feels like people are like, all right, I think we're going to be in this situation for a while. So we think, well, here's something, you know, to see this lovely little movie that all this wonderful work's gone into. And it came out at a time, I think, you know, kind of in the fall award season. So it's tough to get, you know, eyeballs on it with, you know, when you're up against all that money and publicity that's behind those, you know, award contenders. But, you know, in the absence of new content and a lot of the festivals that were coming up again, like Cannes and everything else is either canceled or later, or, you know, sort of parted somewhere online, hopefully people will be looking around for, you know, some new content and, you know, discover some new voices like this film, Toss It, because it is on, as you said, on Amazon Prime. You can rent and buy it there as well, and Apple TV, which was iTunes, it's still in transition, Google Play, and Vimeo on demand. So it's
Great.
everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere. Lots of questions in the chat, so I'm going to move over to take some questions from the audience. Let's see. Lisa is asking, did you allow for any improvisation, given that this was, you know, workshopped with a theater group, or was it very by the script once you got to shooting?
It was, to be honest, it was pretty by the script, which was nice, because so many of the actors really loved their lines. They really didn't know, and they were so loyal to wanting to like deliver them as they've written this. So I was very touched. I will admit, Malachi, I changed, like he had a suggestion too, but like Malachi McCord can rewrite me, because he's delightful. And he was, it was just a slightly sweeter take on some of the lines. And when he was talking about getting the song, he was like, I unloaded this from the computer, which was just priceless. And so I was like, that's it.
Several questions from several different people, all wondering if these questions are based on or these characters, sorry, are based on anyone that you know.
Oh, that's so funny. No, these are all, no. Yeah, it's not like I've like outed all like my best friends in my family. No. No, again, it had more to do with kind of the prototypes, you know, of that we often see in movies, and also it would be fun to play against it, like with Natalie, because she's so opposite, you know, like the sweet bride, you know, it's just like the morning after, it's just like, you know, and then Marie is, you know, the flaky friend in most movies, but then she's one who's genuinely questing to learn, where everyone else is like, I got this, you know, don't, you know, and they're all miserable. And so I kind of, you know, as I wrote them, I sort of got to figure out who they were, and I liked how they became something non-traditional. Also with, you know, especially with Adele, you know, who you just sort of assume she's just going to go down this route, and then by the end of the movie she's got her own new plan, you know, which is not to script either, which I think is nice, because I think it shows, you know, all these prototypes, and I think people can surprise you. I think people just often look at people and just sort of assume, oh, this is who they are, you know, and then it, you know, the same way the movie sort of takes a little while to unpeel everybody, and you know, everyone gets kind of real about themselves. And also because circumstances, if you have big, you know, sort of, you know, huge life events. It often is kind of a reckoning moment. And I think that's why I put them in there, because, you know, it's like what makes people really change and or grow up, you know, or those sort of things.
Question, actually this one made me laugh. Well, the comment and a question from Nancy, and this is to quote Nancy directly: "I enjoyed the film, and as a lesbian, it does seem like an ad for being queer." But I believe and Nancy means that as a compliment. She's curious about why the film seems to be shown mostly from Finn's point of view, given that so much of it has to do with the women.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was originally writing it, I was sort of glibly saying, you know, why are so many men so messed up, and kind of let's kind of deep dive into this one particular guy. And so there is a lot of that, you know, I think when I was, you know, that was still there because I wanted to find that. But I think ultimately as the movie, it almost sort of shifts, you know, sort of the second half, it becomes much more almost like Emily's story. And so, and meanwhile, all these other women are, you know, advising them or, you know, dropping little bombs throughout it. And so, you know, like I was saying before, I think it's about the women sort of negotiating the new relationships in what used to be a very ordered world for them. I love that comment. Thank you, Nancy.
Question from Roma. She says, "I'm a screenwriter on the verge of producing my first feature film. What is some advice that you have on funding and fundraising?" I know you were talking about fiscal sponsorship. And she also was wondering how long the gap was from between when you had a completed script to when you started production.
I think the shooting script was about a year and a half, you know, when I was ready to go. And then, but I thought I had different funding, and then I had to wind up doing the crowdfunding. And once I had, everyone was queued up and ready because, you know, they had been sort of in place. And then it came fast, you know. I think it was about, was it April, May, June, somewhere in that window. And then we were shooting in August, you know. And it was also, it was hard to plan ahead because I also had to work also with the DP's crew and when they could build their, you know, 2-week window in. So, but yeah, that's basically it, about a year and a half. And then the money, you know, I had the budget laid out and I was hoping I could hit it. And I was very fortunate that I had some nice, generous donors. And, but the fiscal sponsorship also really helped, you know. I mean, that was how I got there, and also kept the budget really small because it was the only, and fortunately with all the camera work made it look like I'd spent a lot more money on it. So, and I also got some nice deals in post as well. People I'd worked with before, like a soundtrack group and things like that. So, and also my cousin scored the film for me, which was, you know, so he gave me a great deal. So there were all these cost cutting things, you know, that I could, I had.
You licensed some pretty current songs though. I noticed that too.
Yes. The ones, that was the one song, the one at the end of the movie, because we kind of needed like my associate producer, PJ Palmer, was like, we need like a radio song, you know, and it was hard because we needed something that people would recognize, you know, and that's something that conceivably Uncle Claude would find, you know. It couldn't just be something, you know, a new song. Mostly just didn't really have time either to like put together and craft a whole new pop song, you know. But they were super cool about it. It turns out the American authors had gone to Berkeley School of Music with my cousin Owen, so it was a little bit of friends and family, right? You know, so
I was wondering, I remember thinking, oh, this song is expensive. I'm sure this song is expensive when I heard it, but it was great and it fits perfectly.
Yeah.
Kay is asking, based on what you learned from this experience, what would you change for your next project?
More time, more money. Yeah, basically, though I will say I like shooting quickly, which, you know, we had to, but I think the actors liked it too, because they brought like a real freshness to each take, because I was like, you only got like 5 goes, you know, and everybody sort of had to bring their game. And I think that made it really, like, the stakes were there immediately. It wasn't like 10 takes, that's maybe fine, the motivation. It was just like game on. And I think that translates to the screen. And I think it makes for a fun shoot, because then, you know, people are just like, this is fun, and they can really feel the story happening. And people like to go home at the end of the day. You know, you want a happy crew.
Yes. And you have lots of people applauding in the comments for paying your cast and crew. So, as everyone should applaud. That is a fantastic thing. We love to see that. And saying that it's impressive you did so much on a modest budget. Let's see, I know there are more questions. How long did post-production take? Lydia is asking.
I think it took about, I'm trying to think, about 6 months, I think, from like September and about the following February, I think. Yeah, but here's also the secret to this thing is George has this George Barnes, our DP, owns this like Mercedes-Benz truck van sort of situation, and he turned it into a mobile editing suite. And so our editor, Lorna Chin, also doubled as our DIT, and so she was there pulling, the footage and then putting it into like, the suite and making sure we had all our coverage so we could, because sometimes we only had a location for 2 hours, because like the restaurant scene, I was like, between lunch and dinner, can we shoot here? It was like the local restaurant, and they were cool. And I just like bought the cast, lunch there, and that's how we sort of paid for the, the location. But sorry, back to, I'm losing my thread.
No, that's okay. You mostly answered about how long post-production.
Oh, yes. So the editing was kind of, she was almost rough assembling as we went. Mm-hmm. And then the sound guys, I had worked with Tom Fleischman, who's like an Oscar winner who works with Scorsese all the time, actually mixed my short, and he wanted to mix my feature. And so I just had to wait for him to clear his schedule because he's mixing something super cool. And he and Rick Schnupp, sort of did great work on the film. And then Owen, my cousin, was in Berlin and sort of sending me like the things and working kind of through, virtually, because I sort of gave him what I wanted. So anyway, it was sort of, we're doing it all sort of, at once, but that's sort of how we did it. I think that's most of the post, yeah.
Lydia is also asking if you could explain a little more about what an international distribution deal entails.
Yeah, Journeyman Pictures in the UK reached out to me. I'd been recommended to them by a member of the Writers Guild, and they usually go to Cannes, and so it was sort of a nice confluence. And that was their new model. That's what they do is, because, there was no theatrical release, but it was a worldwide, and because they already have pre-existing, like they have a partnership with Amazon, and then they have, deals set up with iTunes, which is now Apple, and Google Play and Vimeo, and then they basically took in, they put their logo on the trailer and put it up on all the platforms, and then for just the sort of the conform fees for iTunes, the closed captioning, and we also did a Spanish translation because apparently it's big in Spain and like in Spanish-speaking countries, and so and that was it, and that was the deal, like from the jump, that it was worldwide, that they would have international, it's a 2-year deal, and so they put it up on all the platforms, and so that was the crazy thing. It was just like boom, it was just everywhere. It's kind of staggering when I look at all the places where you can see it. So as long as there's an internet connection, you can kind of see it. I was saying it kind of moves the needle now as far as, we used to talk about indie being released, New York and LA, and then maybe could build out, and this was just like everywhere at once. And so that's their model. And so I was very happy to sign that deal. And I just, it could be, depending on how this whole pandemic thing shakes out, the new normal for, what a distribution deal looks like.
Sure. This is normally the part of the conversation where I would wrap it up by asking what is next for each one of you. Now, I know what's next is a little bit of a loaded question right now, given that everything is on hold. So I'll say either what's next or what did you have that you were working on that you hope is going to restart once we get back to normal?
Allison, you want to talk about your musical?
Yeah, so I wrote a musical using the song All Star by Smash Mouth, and it's an entire like golden age style musical only using that song. So it's over and over again interpreted and rearranged in all different musical styles. And so that's still in the works. We're still
it's hysterical and really, really fun.
So we're slowly piecing that together. We're gonna over Zoom solidify the score, which is nuts. Like I'm gonna get a, music arranger that we can sit down over the computer and, get a score on paper, so then we can court more producers. I think we have some people interested, so we're gonna hopefully find a home for that when theaters open again. But yeah, so for now, it's still in the works. It's still in development, so it doesn't feel so, it's not like a dead stop. It feels like it's still going and growing. It's just going to be a little bit different than I was expecting. But but yeah, so that's going strong, and fingers crossed for hopefully soon. That's what I'm going to hope for. But yeah, so that's what I've been working on.
Blair, what's next for you?
I have a little guest spot on an HBO show that hasn't started filming. It was supposed to start in March, and it's been pushed back. So, but that's all I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
That's the Julian Fellows show, right? What's it?
Yeah.
The Gilded Age?
The Gilded Age.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Julian Fellows, who did Downton Abbey. It's his new show. And it's all about the robber barons of the 1890s here in New York. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic. Jenny, what's next for you?
So yeah, so I'm writing a screenplay right now too. I've written a couple plays, so I'm writing my first feature screenplay. So this has actually been kind of like a really nice forced writing time. It's like I'm not going anywhere. I can just sit for hours, and I don't even have to go grocery shopping anymore because everything just gets delivered. Yeah, so finishing that up, and none of us know how long this is going to last. So I was starting to think, well, maybe I'll turn one of my plays into a screenplay. It's sort of just opened up this great creative space. So definitely been more writing focused right now. Yeah.
And Annie, I'm sure you're going crazy with lots of clients, with lots of cancellations and postponements. How does one manage right now as a publicist during all this?
So when the day that South by canceled, because I was planning to go there with clients, I do a lot of film festivals and a lot of theatricals and VODs. And it was kind of a pivot at that moment. There was a lot of panic industry-wise. And then I think everyone kind of realized and just rushed to get things out on VOD. So I'm working on a number of VOD releases right now, because that is pretty much the only platform, is to get things into people's homes. And so a lot of films, a lot of TV series, that's what they're doing right now. And we're hoping that theaters are back soon. I'm not really sure from a practical standpoint when they will, simply because even with social distancing, right as this was happening, I had a film premiering at a festival here in Los Angeles, and we went from a sold out theater to 35 people, and they had everyone a seat apart, but they still had to pass each other in the lobby. There's a lot of variables there that make it challenging. And that's, I think, really tough for cinemas.
Yeah.
And Michelle, what's next for you?
Well, other than the Toss It sequel, apparently.
Yes, the sequel that everyone is demanding, yes.
Well, I was talking, I have this comedy series that some of these lovely women were set to be in as well. That's sort of almost like a kind of a latter day response to the robber barons of the Gilded Age. It's called Slackley Manor. It's sort of about an estate up in the Hudson Valley, and I'm not going to give too much away, but it's pretty much about sort of the quest for the American dream and the trying to find a second act, and this sort of band of misfits kind of get schooled on who really owns America, and but it's about I think it's funny and topical, and there's room for so many talking points, but it's also always just sort of about banding together and trying to. I think so many people have this, I thought my life would be different, and so you see them trying to make that happen, and so and we have there's a soundstage up there that would love to host it, and have location scout. It was just one of those things where, and because the whole first season is written, I'm hoping that I've heard buzz that when things get restarted, they want things that are ready to shoot, so it's not like they have to develop it. I'd be like, I could shoot the whole first season pretty quickly, and we could even almost shoot it like a film and kind of shoot out locations and then cut it into the 8 episodes, depending on again, if and when we have a vaccine, and then we can get back to this, so we're not, always 6 feet apart in every scene, certain stories can be told that way. This one can't. And also the raccoon script was a potential, like depending on which one we go first. And that, still, I would love to shop that around, but there's kind of no point right now without knowing when, because so much of it is, it's very much built around the lead, actress that we need to put in that. And it's a name because it needs a bigger budget to get that going. And I am actually working on turning it into a book right now because, I was like, well, people can safely read a book, on a laptop without any concern about social distancing. So I don't know, we'll see. It's just, again, is we have this great space now to be like, since we can't go anywhere, it's just like, it's a great creative space.
Yeah,
so,
forcing everyone to be creative.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Congratulations again.
Katie.
Thank you, Michelle, Annie, Allison, Jenny, Blair. And thank you to everyone in the audience who joined us. If you liked what you saw today, we hope you'll consider becoming a NYWIFT member. Go to nywift.org/join to become a member of our community. You get access to great conversations like this one, plus special screenings, discounts, access to our private Facebook group, our job board, membership directory, and so much more. You can email membership@nywift.org with any questions you may have. And we plan to continue to bring even more programming to you at home so you can keep developing your career and build your network during this challenging time. If you like to donate to support our professional development and advocacy initiatives, you can go to nywift.org/donate. And we appreciate any and all support that you can give, especially now. And we hope that you'll join us for our next event. It's coming up this Thursday. We have a special advanced screening of the upcoming Comedy Central documentary, Call Your Mother, and a panel with producers Heidi Ewing and Rachel Grady, and comedians Judy Gold, Kristen Shaw, and Bridget Everett. So that should be a very fun time this Thursday. Just go to nywift.org/events to register. And you can find a full list of all of our programs and resources on our website. Again, that's nywift.org. And we'll see you next time on Zoom.